Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Downsizing. So Downsizing got a ton of publicity upon its initial trailer release, and it had a bunch of pre-film festival awards buzz. However, when people started seeing the film, that awards buzz has all but died off. And as we got closer to release date, there have been murmurs about the advertising being very misleading. And now as we've gotten onto the actual advertising of the film, Matt Damon is having a hard time keeping quiet about sexual assault. So it seems an imperfect storm leading into the actual release of this film. But how is the film itself? Well, after seeing it, I would say it's okay. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about those positives first. The cast here is all very good. Starting with our lead, Matt Damon. I think he plays a very relatable guy, as he typically does, and he just plays it very well. I think he feels believable, he feels genuine and authentic always throughout this film, and it just worked. However, Hong Chow is by far the standout. She completely stole the show. She is hilarious in this film. And she injects a much needed spark of life and energy into this movie. Not only that, she also has some very poignant scenes. She also feels very authentic and very believable in what I think otherwise may have felt like a cartoonish type of role. But she was just sublime. So good. Christoph Waltz, I also think, was very good here. He wasn't a villainous character. He was in a comedic role. He was a fun guy. I thought he did very well. Kristen Wiig, I think, was fine. I don't actually think she was all that great in her small role. And then we have, Jason Sudeikis, who is shown in the promos, and, his role is basically nothing, so what's there to say? And my only other actual, tangible positive is that the base premise is very fascinating. It is a very cool, very neat idea. This idea of downsizing, presumably to help the overpopulation problem, is very fascinating to think about. And in doing so, the film in general brings that to light, brings this issue to the forefront, and kind of has you thinking, how can we solve the problem? And I will say the film also looks gorgeous. I think the special effects are mostly very good, and the cinematography is very beautiful. But I had a lot of problems with this film. So the base premise, our starting point, is very interesting. However, we then proceed to shove all of these different messages and ideals and ideas into that starting point until it's just a fragmented mess. We do talk about overpopulation and the environment. We also talk about income inequality. We also talk about immigration. We also talk about medical services. We also talk about your place in the world. We also talk about recreation. There's just so much being talked about here, but yet none of them are talked about well. Alexander Payne doesn't seem to actually have much to say about anything. And you leave the film kind of just like, wait, what was the point of this again? I don't even really have a vague takeaway of what was being said or what was being presented, because so many things were being put out there and thrown out there, but yet none of them were developed or properly explored. And that same sentiment goes toward our romance. There is a shoehorned, shoved in romance that is not given proper attention, is not given proper establishment, and it just made me groan. I visibly rolled my eyes near the end of this film when one of our characters makes a decision in favor of romance. I was over it. And the film itself feels kind of hodgepodged together. We have the beginning where they're normal sized and kind of making this decision to downsize. Then we have the adjustment period. And then we have this flailing part. And I think the flailing part at the end is where it really all starts to unravel, because none of the seeds have been sown properly. But it's also very disjointing as we go through all these different things. And then there is the humor. So I mentioned that Hong Chow does a fabulous job, and she is very, very funny. And there's a lot of good situational humor. Of course, we've seen parts of that in the trailers, but there are some really fun things dealing with like size and adjustment and all of that. But then they throw in humor when it's really not wanted or not needed. Sometimes it's a throwback. One of them is a throwback to a disease that I was just like, oh, okay. Next, we get like a touching moment where they just throw in this random bit of humor. So I had a problem with how humor was used outside of one character who's almost flawless in her use. And then there was maybe even missed opportunities because I think sometimes the film forgot it was supposed to be focusing on tiny, tiny humans. There's a sequence where it's raining outside and the rain is very much normal sized. I mean, it's just like any other rain scene. And it's like, oh, nope. That's not how it would be perceived to these very tiny human people. Or we have a scene where we're on a boat ride along a river. When we're on their level in the boat, the scale of those mountains is very much normal person scale. And it happens actually several times throughout the film where you're looking and you're like, oh, nope. Supposed to be dealing with tiny, tiny people here. So overall, there's a lot that could have been good here. There's a lot of potential that Alexander Payne presents. Unfortunately, he just couldn't focus it in, and thus we're left with this messy final product with just some shining glimmers of the possibilities that could have been. So I can't really recommend that you see this in a theater, but I do think it makes for a solid rental. I think there is enough in there to take out of it, and that wonderful performance from Chow herself deserves to be seen. So I think see it when it comes to rental, but you don't need to pay movie theater prices for Downsizing. So that is my review of Downsizing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below, and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. Also, are you excited to see Downsizing? And what is your favorite film about objects being small? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!